I really need to fill out this plant shelf. Hey, Lee here, helping you become a better plant parent. And I built this plant shelf behind me, and my end goal was always to have it filled out with hanging plants. I do have a kind of sad looking Brasil Philodendron with just 2 stems that are ready to be cut back, propagated, and later placed in a pot with around 6 cuttings for a better looking, more filled out plant. Let me show you how to make more of this plant. Similar to the pothos, generally roots will grow from the aerial root where the leaf meets the stem. Make sure to leave a little room on both sides because there may be other growth points or nodes where new roots can sprout from. I'm going to take as many cuttings as I can of this plant, and because I'm starting to film this in the spring, cutting it back will actually help kickstart a lot of new growth. And although you can find this plant being mass produced and you can get it for a fairly inexpensive price, it's always good to give a free plant to a friend. I also have this green leaf philodendron that needs to be cut back, propagated, and repotted. Roots are starting to come out of the bottom of the pot. It's getting a little bit overcrowded, and I have noticed that the leaves are starting to become incredibly small, especially as it moves farther along the vine. Cutting it back will kickstart some new growth. Hopefully we'll see some larger leaves, and I can take some of these cuttings and add it to my plant shelf. One of the big problems when your leaves start to get so small when you're having a vining philodendron trail down is that when you're trying to water propagate them, you need to take a few more than just one leaf cutting because it's actually too small to fit in whatever glass container you're trying to root it in. So I'm going to take about 3 or 4 leaves, and I'll explain a little bit later why I'm doing that. So I managed to get about 10 cuttings from this philodendron, and I'm going to be using this water propagation station to propagate all my leaves. The reason why I took so many leaves is because since these cuttings are so small, they can tend to fall out of their space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the bottom leaf off. This part right here that we're looking at is the aerial root, and this is going to be where the roots will sprout from. I have an aerial root here and another aerial root up here as well. There is a chance that roots might come from both of these depending on which part is in the water, and the reason why I'm cutting off the leaf is because it's so small that I actually need to make sure that it is able to get in my propagation station and stay in there. Let me get a closer look as well. I just want to explain why I'm not a huge fan of these propagation stations. This style in particular, when the bar is going straight through the glass, if you are putting cuttings on both sides of the glass, their roots can actually get tangled inside the water, and when you're pulling them up, you will be ripping roots as you pull them up, because if they're too tangled, there's no way to untangle them inside this small container. So I do recommend, if you have something like this, make sure all your cuttings go on one side of these. I have roots coming out of the bottom of the pot, so it's time to repot this and give it a chance to grow a little bit more. The soil mix that I'm going to use is a mix of my Monstera soil mix and about 50% potting soil. We fill up a little soil at the bottom, plant goes on top, and we do our best to fill in the rest. So your plant is repotted, and one last thing I wanted to mention, if you have a bobby pin, you can open it up, you can take some of these vines and actually pull it back into the plant, and then if you root it down, the plants should go towards the soil, reroot itself in the plant, which will actually produce much larger leaves. The last thing you need to do is make sure that you need to give your plant a thorough watering, and then you're good to go. So after a few months using the bobby pin method, my Philodendron cordatum really took off. I think this works so well that I'm gonna try this bobby pin method out with a Scindapsus pictus argyrius. I'm gonna take my 4-inch planter and put it in a 6-inch pot. As my vining plant collection is slowly coming together, I'll be patient for some new additions to this shelf. A great plant collection really does take time, and it helps if you love the process too. Like the video if it was helpful, and consider subscribing. We'll see you next time.